Hey there, Captain.
Hello, good evening.
You're as early as I am.
Yeah, ready to roll. My shift ends at 5, so I am ready to roll whenever you guys are.
Okay, and here's your compadre.
Yep, there he is right there.
Well, hopefully we'll get some residents to join us. Good evening. How's life in Raleigh? I'm down in Florida.
Oh,
Yeah, it's good here.
You guys having the same weather we are? It's in the 80s here.
Yeah, it's a little bit cooler, but very, very rainy right now.
Oh, we could use that down here, believe it or not.
What in the world? Give me just a minute. I got a weird email I gotta respond to. What do you think about this?
You got time. You guys are my only guests tonight, believe it or not.
Well, that is good. That'll make it go much faster for us, I bet.
And if we don't get any residents, it'll go real fast. I don't usually tell people when I'm out of town, but my neighbor decided to broadcast it for me. Hey, Steve.
Hey Larry, how are you?
Doing good. Hope you are.
Yeah.
You and Lubin are the only ones on so far. Today is Monday, right?
Yeah.
Like every week, waiting for people to sign in. I think I should tell them it's 6:30 instead of 7.
Now, is that too loud, Larry?
You're good, Steve.
Seven.
Mhm.
Good meeting.
Larry, can we get some poetry or maybe some background music to see if our speakers are working?
Oh, how about if I just talk? I could sing to you, but that would drive you away.
Excellent, thank you.
Is there something going on in Raleigh on a Monday night that I'm not aware of? Basketball's not playing tonight.
Daylight savings time, a lovely, warm, sunny evening. I just came back from a walk. There's a lot of people out walking.
Yeah, I would be myself, actually. Give everybody just a couple more minutes, or we may be out and walking around the sunshine ourselves real soon.
is.
All right. Well, wherever everybody is, I guess they'll just come zipping in here at some point. We're gonna make this real simple. We don't even have to do roll call. Holly, I see you. Michelle, Steve, Leuven, Alan. Let's see, did I miss anybody? Nope, don't hear anybody. Okay, consider roll call done. We don't have any minutes, so that part's easy. I don't know what happened with Will. I guess he's just really busy. Holly, I may ask you to, well, let's have a little discussion later and may take you up on your offer about taking minutes, but you really don't have to take any notes per se because we have the video recording, we have the chat, so it's all kind of laid out. So what I may do is just have you contact Will and see if you can help him out because I think he's getting tied up with work, and just let it go at that for right now. Unless you'd rather not. Okay, let's get started. Let's get started with our only guest tonight, Captain Tomczak and Officer Winkle. Whoever would like to start first.
Oh, I think I'm going to start and take the bulk of this one. So Officer Winkle, I'm sure, is probably sitting in his driveway at home right now watching this. So the police department, first of all, let me apologize profusely for missing the last meeting. It just did not make it onto my calendar for that night, and I apologize. I'm embarrassed to say that I can't read dates correctly. So at least I couldn't read dates correctly when I scheduled it. So I do apologize. I did reach back out to Leuven and pass along some information. We didn't have much to report anyway last time, but I do apologize for that. This time, however, we've got your crime stats and information. There is just nothing to report to you all. In fact, your larcenies, your thefts from motor vehicles are down from last month. So either they're going to a different place or you all are doing a good job of spreading the word about locking your vehicle. We did have a couple in your area, but really, actually really good crime numbers. The whole North District is doing very well with crime, not just your area, but the whole district is down 6% in violent crime, which is amazing for the year. The city, I think, is about breaking even. There's some other areas that are up significantly. Actually, I don't think the city's breaking even. There's some other areas that are up significantly. So I don't have anything to discuss in your area. I would just let you know that we are working very closely with Kane Security over at North Hills. So they haven't had any incidents like there was a shots fired call over by King's Bowling, I think about 2 months ago now. And we've been working with them about installing cameras and some other things to help them with their security. Got a good relationship with them, and now we're meeting with them. Every month I'll meet with their director of security and exchange information. And they've been sharing stuff with us as well. So I'm feeling much better about Kings Bowling and North Hills Mall, or North Hills Mall. That's what it was when I grew up here. The North Hills area, much better. Shots fired at Quail Hollow, no problems with that. We've had some shots fired down at the apartments at the end of Quail Hollow, but the park, Eastgate Park, should be fine. We haven't had any shots fired there in a while. And I know that I did pass along after the meeting, but did pass along that they are looking to install a gate down there at Eastgate Park to stop people from coming in after hours. So my people have been doing some security checks after hours, and they have gotten some marijuana from people going to the park to make out or smoke weed or whatever it is people do at the park nowadays. So we're still keeping an eye on it. And I think that's one of the reasons we're not having that trouble. The only other thing that I would say about your area is we are trying very hard, and it's really on just the northern tip of your area. We're trying very hard to clamp down on some problems at Sanderson High School involving students being off campus in Optimus Park. So we've had officers out there nearly every day for the last week and a half, from about 9:30 in the morning till about 12. We did catch some kids lighting fires in the dugouts over there. And I think one day we ended up dragging 11 kids back to Sanderson who were truant. So we are doing what we can. The change in the juvenile law, whereby they raise the age to 18 before you can be arrested for a criminal offense, has caused us some grief. It makes it a little more difficult for us to enforce criminal laws on folks who are between 16 or folks who are 16 and 17.
Is
So
that a
used to-
local thing?
No, sir, that's the state. They raised the age across the state. So now if they are 16 or 17, instead of charging them on a citation or taking them to jail if they did something incredibly bad, we have to get a juvenile petition. And if it's incredibly heinous, like a robbery, we have to call a juvenile court counselor and try to get them into a secure custody facility overnight. So the reason the law was enacted was people wanted to, different states have different ages for what they consider juveniles. There was a lot of pressure to raise the age. So there was a belief, that may be true, maybe not true, I don't know about it, but that these 16, 17-year-olds that we were putting in jail when they did something wrong they felt like they should maybe get a longer chance of being a kid, I guess. I don't know. It is what it is. So there were some reasons for it. Doesn't matter what the reasons were, it's the law. So we follow the law, but it has thwarted some of our efforts with these out of control 16 and 17-year-olds where we used to could write them a ticket or in bad cases take them to jail. Now we have to jump through some different hoops. And so the kids that were burning stuff at Optimus Park, we were not able to take into custody for arson. We had to seek some juvenile petitions for that, which is like a juvenile version of going to court. So is what it is. We can't go back in time. We're dealing with it, but it has been very frustrating this year with Sanderson. Also with Millbrook, which is not in your Midtown area, but Millbrook High School has had some similar problems. So that's where the bulk of our efforts are right now. I see someone asked about the shooting at Biscuitville. That is still under investigation, and I don't have anything to release that that has not been released to the press already. So I will, and I believe this was in the press, and if it wasn't, I'm gonna say it anyway, that was not a random shooting. So I'll just leave it at that.
Well, thanks for changing the
if
law. I
there's
was
something-
unaware of that.
Yeah, if there's something more specific I can answer about that, then I will. That's actually occurred. It's part of your CAC, but it's not part of my district. So I guess it's part of your CAC. But since it's inside the belt line, it's not part of my district. So I know a little bit about that. I've been briefed a little bit on it. But since it's inside the belt line, it's not really one of the crimes that I'm tracking. I don't have to carry those numbers. My guys aren't looking for those bad guys. We've got our own bad guys to catch. But
I'm gonna ask you the obvious one. What's the latest on the cameras at Eastgate?
On the cameras. So cameras at Eastgate, those are in the works. They're a little bit further down the road. The gate is a measure that the Parks and Recs and Cultural Resources wants to put into place now, but cameras are coming. So they're working through cameras at a bunch of different places here. So I don't have a timeline. I have a general timeline, which is to say, ask me again probably in August.
Okay.
But that may be I got to go back to Parks and Rec and ask them for another timeline. But they were very excited about a gate. They worked out someone opening that in the mornings. So that should be on the way here pretty soon.
Well, the last I heard is they still don't have somebody hired to do that. We're actually going to meet at Eastgate Park. That's our plan anyway. Meet at Eastgate Park for a physical in-person meeting in April. And the last I heard was Linda Stafford, has both Eastgate and Millbrook Park. She's the one that's going to open the gate and open the building for us. So I don't think they've solved that problem yet.
Well, maybe they had solved it and then it became unsolved because I got really positive feedback from Ken Hissler, who's one of the deputy directors of Parks and Recs Cultural Resources. So they may have, what he said to me was, this is exactly what we're going to do. And I asked about the gate. He said, we've got that handled. And so it may be that they had it handled and then it became unhandled, which happens on the police department sometimes too. So we have a plan, we put it in motion, and then all of a sudden we realize it's not quite what we thought it was. But I'm excited about that. I think that will help. The cameras will help as well. The gate is preventative. The cameras, of course, will help us after the fact. So but I'm thrilled with the amount of the lack of crime going on in the district as a whole and in your area. So if there's specific questions, I'm happy to answer them. I don't know. And Matt, do you have anything to add? I think we've covered all the points.
Just the only point and number that really stands out to me is our calls for service, and it's motor vehicle crashes. 3-second rule. Try and leave at least 3 seconds between you and the car in front of you. If you are involved in a crash, try and pull over somewhere safe. Please stay in your vehicle. Don't get out into traffic and take pictures. We will do our best to document everything as fair and equally as possible. Dash cams and rear cams for vehicles are relatively cheap nowadays. They're definitely a strong investment here in the city of Raleigh. And that's Captain Tomczak. You took the bulk from me.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, Matt. We did see an increase in motor vehicle crashes. There's a lot of reasons for that. There could be any number of reasons for that, but great advice, Matt. Definitely, there's no reason to block up a travel lane. If the cars are movable, go ahead and get them out of the road. And this is why, if it's a rear end collision, we can tell who's at fault. If it's a side swipe collision, we're probably never going to be able to tell who's at fault. So there's no sense really in leaving the cars there. We can look back at debris if it's a side swipe and figure out who's in what lane, but we'd rather just get the road opened up. So great, Matt, that's great advice. Thank you for pointing that out. Those wrecks are up a little bit higher in the area, and our traffic stops are up significantly. In your CAC in the last month, we had over 400 traffic stops. So we are
Wow.
really pushing on the officers to get out there and get people that are breaking the law, not necessarily to write citations, give warnings. We're fine with that, but we want people getting stopped. So some people deserve a ticket, some people deserve a warning, depends how egregious it is, depends how many times they've already been given warnings, things like that. So we really want people to get out there and stop some cars. It's also a great way for us to find guns, drugs, and bad guys. So people don't generally ride the public transportation system to deliver their drugs around the city of Raleigh. They're in cars. So we really want our people out there doing it. But that's what I got. I don't want to take, well, I was gonna say I don't want to take up too much of your time. You don't have anybody else behind me. So I'm happy to take as much time as you want, but I'm really, really pleased with the numbers coming in. You know, the chief has asked that we district commanders try to really get a 5% decrease in violent crime and motor vehicle thefts. And we've already met our goal. I wish I could freeze time right now and just say, we've met our goal, chief, but we're going to keep it going until the end of the year. So I'm really, really pleased with the officers that you'll have serving your community. I will also say that I have, as one of the senior captains, I have been borrowing, and stealing officers from other areas of the city to try to get my rosters filled up. So I am very lucky to have right now only 5 vacancies in my area. My area is not staffed correctly anyway, in my opinion. So I really could use about 10 extra positions, but the positions they've given me, I've got 5 vacancies, which isn't bad. Matt is your only community officer. I'm supposed to have 4, and he's the only one. And the recent promotions did not fill my community sergeant position, which is also vacant. So I do have some vacancies, but it's less than I had, let's say 3 months ago. So I'm very, very happy with what we're doing. We got some young, hard chargers. One of your North District officers won Officer of the Month 2 months ago. Kendall Strawn was the Officer of the Month. Does a great job. Got a lot of guns, got a lot of drugs, a lot of traffic stops, got DWIs, great all-around cop. And the reason he got it is because he was helping a woman in a mental health crisis. And then, very frankly, remembered 2 months later when we got another 911 call about her trying to kill herself. He remembered where she said she was going to kill herself. We sent officers there. They found her, and they were able to save her and her child. So you've got some great cops working this area. 2 of them are on the call with you right now, at least one of them, Matt. If there's anything that we can do, certainly reach out to us. And I again apologize for missing the meeting last month. We're
as
on
I
top.
say, that's all right. As I say every month, we appreciate your service and what you do. So anything we can do to help you, we're glad to do that.
You all are doing it. We appreciate the support, getting the gate down there. And if you're meeting with those folks, we can't do everything. The public pressure to the other departments in the city and the state really help reinforce what we're doing. Sometimes when I go to, I can go and we've got a lot of camps that are appearing on state property around the roads, the Beltline, all kinds of places. And when I go to them and say, listen, there's a camp here, it's causing us trouble. These people, we've offered them resources. They don't want to take them. They just want to camp on state property. Sometimes people don't listen, but when y'all get fired up, I know it seems like we're the ones with the power, but that's not the way it is. It's you all with the power. So we appreciate everything you're doing to help down at Eastgate and anything else that you can do. We have been hitting Millbrook Road pretty hard with speeding. So Millbrook is a constant speed complaint location. So we rotate through about every 2 to 3 months. And so a lot of those stops, I don't want to say a lot of them, but I would guarantee you 50 of those 400 stops were probably on Millbrook Road in the last couple of weeks. We've been working that pretty hard. So, and just is what it is. So don't speed don't speed anywhere, but especially don't speed on Millbrook. Especially for the next week. I think we'll probably be pulling out in 2 weeks if you just can't keep your foot off the gas.
Well, keep up the good work. And I will tell you, I'm down in Florida, and if stop signs had a meaning down here, I don't know what it is, but you don't have enough people. Nobody has enough people to stop the people going through stop signs down here. They know one speed, and if the stop sign gets in the way, that's the way it is. So different.
It is unfortunate. So
Raleigh is a haven compared to what goes on down here.
Very much. We are always happy to hear that. Any other questions that we can answer before we sign off? We're happy to. It's so rare that the one day that there's no one following us, I really don't have that much crime to talk about. So that's good. I mean, I'm happy for that.
Anybody else? No, thank you for your time. And
All
we'll
right.
see you next month.
Thank you all very much. We'll see you next month.
Well, since we're jumping around the agenda here, we were supposed to get a couple of updates from some of the people, but I don't see them signed on. Must be a holiday somewhere for some people. I just don't understand it. But Steve, since you're online, why don't you tell people about your new role with the city?
Thanks, Larry. Yeah, it's pretty simple. The city started a new program called Community Connectors, and they asked people to apply for it. The idea being that you sort of almost act as an adjunct to the city employees in terms of communicating different different issues. So I put in an application for it a while ago. I joked with Larry that I actually forgot I put the application in, and then I got the email that says, congratulations, you're in. And my assignment is rezoning in District A. So I'm working, I have a contact at the planning department that I work directly with. The main assignment is to attend neighborhood meetings and then engage in conversations with people that are there as a more of a fellow resident than a city employee. We are compensated for our time, and it's actually, we're not city employees, we're actually contractors to the city. So it's kind of interesting. It started off slow because it was a new program, so there are a few bumps in getting us started, but we did 2-hour training sessions where they sort of ran through the rezoning process and how it works. And I've done probably, I guess, about 4 meetings. 2 of them weren't actually in our district, but I just went to get a feel for them because, quite honestly, I didn't spend a lot of time going to rezoning meetings. But so basically what they do is they advise us, or I just check the calendar when there's a meeting in District A. There's 2 of us assigned, myself and a woman, Nancy Cunningham. And so basically it's all District A, which is, parts of which of course are outside the CAC. But then what we do is sort of gather a little information, give some feedback back to the city if we want, and then also use any contacts or social media or things like that we have to also, put the word out there. So it's, for semi-retired type people, it's, it's interesting. It's interesting work. You get to meet some interesting people. Very briefly, the one I went to most recently, which is, I guess it is outside the CAC, isn't it, Larry? It's actually in Atlantic.
Yeah, it is. I do follow that area, but it is outside our CAC.
So very briefly, since it isn't in ours, this is a case on Litchford Road, and it's near Litchford. And I did put the address in. Brilliant. So it's up near, before you get to that major intersection, what is that? Lake Grisham. So south of that, the property is actually bordered to the north by the Vine Church and to the south by another apartment complex. So it's currently a semi-wooded area. It's actually zoned for light industrial and R6 currently. What they've asked to do is change it to RX5 CU with a 5-story limit, which is apartment buildings, and as well as allowing some mixed use. So the very preliminary plans that they put out there is for 160 units. There would be 70% one bedroom, another small percentage, maybe 20% or more of 2 bedrooms, and then a handful of 3-bedroom units. The main change there is that it goes from the 3 stories to the 5 stories. Well, actually, I'm sorry. It is 5 stories is the main change, or up to 5 stories. The way it's zoned currently was going to allow for up to 88 residential units. And those most likely would have been townhome type units. And then the back end could be small industrial. So what they want to do is make it all the single industrial. Northeast of it is a large industrial area. There's a whole bunch of landscaping businesses back there and everything like that along Round Rock Road. And Round Rock Road would have to be extended down to Litchford. And there would be another entrance just north of that as well into the complex. So the neighbor concerns, not surprisingly, because if you go to the west of this property, and in fact, you go to the west side of Litchford in that area, it's all single family residentials. The east side is, as I said, the church. There's actually another apartment complex right near the church and another apartment complex south of this property. The concern was traffic. The developer was very open to the feedback because the concern is what you have once you open up Round Rock. You got potential for a run through up to, I guess it goes to Roland, and eventually you could take that to Lake Grisham. They're open to the idea. The one thing they brought up was that the actual traffic with apartments versus these type of apartments versus 88 townhome type units is theoretically you actually have a lower traffic impact than the current zoning. So it's kind of an interesting type thing. I'm not going to tell you that went over real well with a few people, but it was an interesting point. The reason the area concern was the visual of 5-story buildings. And the developer said the reason they're asking for up to 5-story buildings is that way they can actually have elevator service. Because if you go below 4, it's just uneconomical to put an elevator in the building. So that was it. It was it was a good meeting. Ran for about an hour and a half, and now it is going over to the Planning Commission on April 11th. So one of the other things I do when talking to people is just tell them, hey, this neighborhood meeting is not the be all end all. They can still, they can go to the Planning Commission meeting and be heard, and of course go to the City Council and be heard. So that's basically it. There's there's one case in District A, but it's on hold right now, awaiting more information. So that's all that's on the calendar.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And like I said, getting the report on the rezoning was very helpful to me. That's been a problem in the past, I guess, is that if somebody doesn't go to the neighborhood meeting, we really lose touch with what's going on. And fortunately for us right now, there's not much going on in our immediate CAC area. Once we got the Kane issue temporarily put aside, it left out a lot of voids for a lot of other redevelopment. There is a concern. The one you went to, Steve, I think it's going to turn out to be a very busy area. That's just to the west of Litchford 315, I think it is. Big property that was developed just on the backside of Millbrook High School.
Right.
And then I saw there's a few other on Litchford Road, there's a few other plots of ground that have been cleared for development, I guess, from the past. And then I also sat in on a meeting for the developments coming in right below, right on the property of Gresham's Lake. That to me is a bigger concern because it's totally isolated. And they're gonna have to put a road under the railroad to allow them to come down through the subdivision through Summit, I think it is, to access Old Wake Forest Road. So that's one just to watch because
Yeah, the
an
railroad's
area
kind of
that's growing.
does, it does, the railroad goes right behind it, and one of the points that came up is, putting an apartment near a active railway,
Yeah,
kind of interesting. I mean, I guess some people like the sound.
I've sat in a couple of them. This is the third one, I think, that's right next to the rail line. And there's
Yeah.
been no mention of noise buffering or what types of homes or apartments are going in there.
Right.
And it's not affordable homes going in.
Right.
So they're all just projects to watch.
Yeah, they said the average would probably be for the one bedrooms would be around 1,500.
Yeah, market rate. Yeah, which is probably a little below market rate, actually.
Yeah.
So that's good. Thanks, Steve. That helped a lot.
Yep.
Okay, I was just gonna run through a bunch of things tonight and we might even get it done here before the sun goes down. Let's see. I sent you all an update on a number of areas. We were gonna have a bunch of guest speakers, but in reality, they summarized things pretty well for me. And I sent that out in an earlier email. Hopefully everybody received that. First one I wanted to talk about is the multimodal bridge, which I'm very pleased about. It's going to be a traffic relief, I think, for some of this area. It's going to have to take a little massaging, I think, to make sure that we don't take traffic from one area and dump it into another area and just make a secondary area that's worse than what we had. But I think that's yet to come. So if you missed it in what I sent out earlier, they picked option 2, which was probably the best option and avoids most of the waterways, the wetlands, and the creek. And it'll have a roundabout to allow it to get over to Barrett Drive without going through some of the businesses, and also another outlet to go down to what's the name of that road? Waketown Drive. And then I think eventually they'll figure out that instead of going to Barrett Drive, maybe they should get right out to Six Forks Road, because there's no traffic light on that end of Computer Drive that's called there. And then to get to the light, you have to go around Barrett Drive and come out at the traffic light. So that's why I say I think it'll take a little massaging down the road, but I thought it was a pretty good move. It's something that's in the Midtown plan. And then the presentation for that, I think, is tomorrow at the Planning Commission. And for what I saw, the proposal actually includes both bridges, both the multimodal, and leaves, I think, a modification for the street plan for the pedestrian bridge that'll go from Bush Street over to Industrial. So at least they're making progress. There's no budget for either one. When they'll see a budget for either one, I don't know. I intend to pressure them and keep on them from a budget standpoint that Midtown's been overlooked, and they need to focus on some of what's going on here rather than everything being downtown. So that's my point of view. Okay. Any comments on that? Multimodal bridge, positive, negative? Don't all speak at once.
No, I think it's good, Larry. I think that was the right option for them to pick.
Good.
So I'm glad they went that direction.
I think so. Let's see, what else was on there? Oh yeah, the street calming. A lot to talk about here, actually. Not there, but my understanding is that Hardemont is undergoing street calming. They're finally executing their plan to minimize traffic on Hardemont. I don't know how many of you have seen it or experienced it. But it should be under progress and should be completed, I thought, by the end of this month. I may be mistaken by that. It's going to have a little road pinching, not as bad as some of the other roads that we've seen in the area. So I'm also looking forward to see what gets done and the effect of it. It will have a roundabout in it, I think, at Hardemont and Quail Hollow, I think. I may be wrong about that. But
Yeah.
again, Not being there, I can't tell you. Steve, you've been
And
over
Larry,
there?
yeah, the one thing I did confirm today, it's a little confusing if you go through Quail Hollow and Hardemont right now, because you got the four-way stop signs and you got the circle in the middle. What's going to happen there is it's going to turn into a four-way yield. So this four-way stops are going to go down, and it'll be a yield through there.
Now, there was supposed to be a traffic light there. I don't know why they,
Quail Hollow, Quail Hollow and Hardemont.
Will Hollow. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm confusing St. Albans with Hardemont. You're right.
So it'll be interesting to see how that works out. Of course, nothing comes north on it anyway, almost nothing. And most of the traffic is probably east-west. So it should, it'll be interesting to see how it works. The pinchers look pretty good too.
Good. And the bike routing through them?
Yeah, yeah. So, they were doing the one over by Wingate today. They were putting that one in.
Yeah. They originally had a roundabout at Wingate and Hardemont. I'm glad they didn't put it in there.
Yeah.
Or down the next intersection. I think there's only one roundabout, right?
Yeah, the only roundabout is at Quail Hollow. The other ones are pinchers, because there's going to be one over by, what is that, Converse that comes through, or Compton? Converse or Compton. I always switch those two.
Converse. Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I sat in on a meeting of the Transportation and Transit Committee meeting. And it was interesting because they had a whole discussion about traffic calming and the petition process, because right now somebody has to petition the city to initiate a project. Then they do their evaluation, then it comes back to city council for approval. And that whole process seems to take about 2 years. It's not a quick process. So Jonathan Melton, I think, suggested that it maybe should be mandatory. In other words, giving the traffic people the right to just go ahead and do as they seem fit. Well, they're already doing that. I don't think Jonathan knows that, but they're already doing that. The street that's right across from North Hills Dartmouth, they didn't have enough people to sign on to the project. So technically by petition, it failed. But the city decided that the speed bumps were necessary for Dartmouth, despite the fact it had all its stop signs on it. And they went ahead and put in all those speed bumps that are now on Dartmouth. That was a city initiative. It was not a citizen initiative. So hopefully we don't see more of that. I would like to have the public have its say in all cases. So I'll just open that up for discussion.
I've got a question on that, Larry.
Mhm.
So my particular situation, I've lived on my circle for over 35 years. It's never been repaved. And I tried asking for that probably about 15 years ago. And they said that won't ever happen because, before I was even in there, the sidewalks weren't put in. So is that something, is that fall into the category of what you would say where I'd go in and make a request through the right channels and get that done?
As far as the paving goes, definitely it should be in the city plan to have it paved. And they do have some kind of routine where every street gets done after so many years. As far as the sidewalks go, that's always been an interesting subject. I'd say the council currently is favoring more and more sidewalks. I know cul-de-sacs historically don't have sidewalks.
Yeah, I'm
Every
not looking
street,
for
they're on one side of
sidewalks.
the street. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, my impression for what they were saying was that way back when, because they didn't pay assessments for sidewalks, that'll never be paved. I mean, if you have a pothole, we'll repair it, but we're not going to repave. Of course, this is 15 years ago when I asked this, and I just hadn't touched it since, but.
Yeah, I'd say now's the time to ask because
Okay.
it's a different environment.
Yeah.
How to ask and who to ask, I really don't know.
Yeah, I'll call down there and navigate it. Yeah, it may be a whole different policy now from called there before.
Next thing on my agenda is Six Forks Road. I guess you saw even though it got a lot of attention during the Kane rezoning, the last I seen of the schedule and the last email, I think is what I sent out, is that we're at least a year away, 2024. They're going through the property acquisitions necessary. And I don't think anything's going to start till at least 2024. It had already been put off 1 year. I suspect that it may get put off even more. It'd be interesting to watch the budget process and make sure that it stays on schedule in 2024. If it doesn't, I mean, they're just delaying the problem and pushing it further down the road. And hopefully by that time, as you saw in the memo from Kenneth Ritchie, there is a phase 2 and there is a phase 3. Now, phase 2 was already planned by the city, has a cost estimate to it. It's just a matter of initiating it. And phase 2 is the critical piece for us. It's the part that comes down from Rowan to the Beltline. So it'd be in front of the Kane redevelopment process, whichever way that goes. I don't think that's finished. And then we have an awful lot of redevelopment already approved that's going to occur on St. Albans. So the need for better traffic enhanced control is certainly there. And it looks like we're at least 1 year down the road. St. Albans may actually happen before Six Forks, we'll see. And that gets me, I guess, to my next point. With the planning for the multimodal bridge, there's also planning to push Quail Hollow South, I'll call it, up to St. Albans. I think that'll help people quite a bit, actually, because that'll take everybody down to Navajo Drive from St. Albans. So they can bypass a little bit of Wake Forest Road. But again, that's actually going to be completed by Carolina DeWitt. So that's not dependent upon the city. But at the same time, since it's at the developer's expense, they're not going to push it either until the city says, hey, let's get it done. I'm sure you've all seen the big pile of dirt that sits at the end of the road coming in from the back of Kane's property and would go up towards the exchange. You can't miss it. There's a gigantic pile of dirt, and that has to turn from a pile of dirt to a roadway and make that happen. So, and then there's also a long discussion about changing the name of that road, which everybody admits should be done. The question was, how many properties are you affected? And turns out there's only 2 properties affected. One is owned by the exchange and the other is owned by the property that's going to develop along Navajo Drive. So it's not a big deal that way. The only thing probably stopping it, which I don't want to have to pay the $300 fee for a name change, is getting somebody to sponsor it and get it done. And I'm hoping it'll be DeWitt Carolinas as we move a little further along. It's to their benefit. So that's all I had to say on that one. Let's see, what else?
Can I ask a question on this?
Sure.
So has there been any mention of a plan to, is that Quail Hollow that hits, I mean, you're saying they're going to extend Quail Hollow down, but what's the road that hits St. Albans right now? That's
The one that hits currently is Quail Hollow.
oh, that is Quail. Okay.
Well, actually, no, I take that back. It's Hardamont.
Hardamont, yeah.
Quail Hollow hits Hardamont.
Are they ever planning on, or have they talked about building that through a bridge underneath or a tunnel underneath the Beltline? Oh, to have another point that you can drive into town on rather than having to get on Wake Forest or Six Forks.
Well, that's what the purpose of the multimodal bridge will do.
Oh, okay, that's what you're saying right there. Okay, that's great. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see, what else did I? Street comment, Six Forks budget. Oh, missing middle. I guess we better talk about that before I forget about it. You're probably all aware by now that the people at the 5 Points area filed a lawsuit against the city, primarily because they issued a lot of changes to the zoning laws. And right now there's no notification if a property use should change, say from an R4 to an R6 or even if it changes, worst comes to worst to an R10, the neighbors do not get notification. So if you're sitting in your home and all of a sudden the house next door gets sold and the house next to that one gets sold, they can come in and pretty much put in whatever they want, whether it be an apartment house, a duplex, or whatever. So despite a lot of feedback from residents saying they should have the right to decide what goes in next to them, the city decided the opposite of that. And everybody has, 5 Points Group has literally filed a lawsuit against them. So I don't know how that's going to change things. You need to go to the Missing Middle website. There are a couple of reports that have been issued, one of which is a summary of comments when everybody took the survey. Hopefully everybody took the survey. I've been told that everybody's comments that were provided were not included, but I need to check that for myself, see if my comments are in there. So it'd be worth, if you did make comments at one of the many sessions they held, you might want to go to the report and see if your input is actually in there. I'd like to know that myself. So just let that go for the Missing Middle for the time being. Anybody have any questions on the Missing Middle?
Larry, I have 2 questions.
Sure.
Does that mean that anywhere in the city, they're just ignoring the process?
Yep.
Okay, and does that, so then in addition to that, if there was an overlay district, that's basically void? Is that what you're saying?
No, for right now, especially if there's a homeowners association, doesn't affect them. And if there's an overlay district, does not affect them. Those are the 2 exceptions for right now.
Okay.
But if you're
Larry,
not
what
covered
does
by
overlay mean?
overlay, means the neighborhood got together and set specific conditions for their neighborhood as to building heights and a few other restrictions in terms of uses that can go into that area.
Setbacks.
That's something they've got to file.
Mhm.
And it may be too late to file it if they don't know about it.
Right.
Yes,
David, I
it is.
see your hand is up. David?
Yeah, sorry, hitting too many buttons too quick on my phone. Just to clarify, zones like R6 and R10 always allowed you to put in things like townhomes and apartments. So this
Right.
really, Missing Middle just extended that to R4. So the neighborhood conservation overlay districts, we haven't had one since the last one, the very last one was off Newton Road in whenever the new council, right after the new council of 2019 took office. But all this Missing Middle does is allow things like ADUs, duplexes, townhomes, and some smaller apartment complexes in R4. So it's not like the whole city suddenly changed. Much of the city was already R6 or R10. So, I mean, and this is a trend nationally. Arlington just did this. Arlington, Virginia just did this the other day.
David, there's a
So-
little bit more to it than that. Just because you're R4 doesn't mean you will stay R4. That's the negative side of it.
Well, I don't know if that's negative, right? So that's the issue is a lot of people believe that in order to make Raleigh a city and grow and adapt and take in new people, changing R4 areas into slightly denser but still residential areas where there are duplexes is a net positive.
Right, that's the big question. I mean, do you want to allow more density on the plot right next to your house? That's really what it
Well,
amounts
I-
to.
Yeah, no, I'd say I would just flip it the other way. Since this is America, a free country, and I believe in property rights, I would never do anything to infringe on my neighbor's right to develop their property if it's just going to continue to be residential. So community ownership of property, some people might say is, well, not in the tradition that cities used to be built in this country.
Right, and I agree with you. I think the city didn't get the message. That's the only difference. Maybe that's a good way to fix the Missing Middle, is to put it just the way you put it. Okay, that was not bad for Missing Middle. It's very controversial and will continue to be so. And it's being studied by the council as to whether they're going to modify it. I don't think they'll repeal it, but they may modify it. That's my expectation. Last thing, budget. Budget for the city is coming about. I think they're going to try to wrap it up by May, because it has to be finalized in June and effective in July 1st. So pay attention to the budget. I intend to make sure that Midtown has a focus in the budget, especially the Midtown plan. If you have your own special needs where you think the city should be spending money, they are doing a survey. I think the survey is still open, might be correct. But pay attention to that. There are work sessions being presented to council on the budgetary process. There will probably be public presentations for the budget. And my guess is, if not April, certainly by May, we will probably have that as a main topic to see just where we are. The budget department has a new administrator. She seems to have a different slant on budgeting, which is a good thing. I think she favors line by line budgeting, which is another good thing. So I think everybody would like to meet her and listen to her, and I'm going to try to set that up for April. Didn't work out this month, but that's my objective. And if you have any other ideas for topics, please feel free to contact me and let me know. I have to again ask what few people we have tonight. We are still looking for a volunteer for the nominating committee. That process also will initiate itself probably starting in April, so that we have an election by June. Our CAC is a little unique in that we have elections every year, but we don't have term limits as opposed to the larger Raleigh CAC organization. So still looking for volunteers for that committee. Don't everybody shout at one time. So let's open it up to things that you guys would like to cover that I have not covered. Alan, is there anything from your committee actions you'd like to present? Alan?
I'm just hitting the unmute. I'm a little slow. I did go to the last BPAC meeting, did discuss a few bicycle related things with the BPAC. I also, while I was there, the gentleman that you've been emailing back and forth with about Hardemont, I'm drawing a blank. Will Shoemaker. Will Shoemaker was there, and I did find out that the bike lanes on Hardemont are not going anywhere. So that's what he told me, that the traffic calming at the intersection is still coming along, and I think that's getting surveyed right now. They're actually surveying the street cross section, things like that, but the bike lanes are going to stay. That was kind of the big news. I kind of went to the BPAC to see what was going on because they actually were meeting on that and a few other things. They did talk about the multimodal bridge. One of the cross sections did not have a cross section design, which I thought would probably be the best one. And they said they'll try to add that one back into the more recent notes. There is an example. I can never remember the name of the road. It's the road that goes by McKimmon at NC State and heads over toward Whole Foods and dead ends at Whole Foods. I never remember the name of that road. That road has a
Gorman.
Yeah, Gorman.
the Gorman. Yeah, they have a two-way cycle track on one side of the bridge, and that makes it a little bit nicer separation between motor vehicles, between bicycles, and between pedestrians, because the bikes are all kind of in one area. So the cycle track is pretty nice over there. So I asked them to make sure that the cycle track is part of one of the options for the multimodal. And then I also, in the public comments, I also said a mixed lane doesn't really work with bikes and pedestrians. If you have the real estate and surface, it's best to separate them for everybody's safety, in my personal opinion. So that was kind of some of the impact of the BPAC. There is still no money in the budget for a bike plan or updating the current bike plan, which is getting pretty old right now. But other than that, that's pretty much all I can report. If you do have any requests or ideas, the city is more agreeable with actually adding curb breaks in areas that are not at intersections for greenways. So this is kind of a 180 shift from the old days where they like to channelize everybody to get them to an intersection so that they wouldn't leave a greenway in the middle of a road. But I think they've kind of figured out that having people be able to get onto a greenway is better than having them hop the curb. So trying to make that a little bit easier for everybody. So it's kind of a change in position. So if anybody wants to send an email to Larry about an area they think that the greenway should connect to a road and it maybe needs a curb cut, just let Larry know. Larry, you can feed it back to me. And I have a couple spots that I've always dreamed about having a curb cut. So they're starting to go a little further forward with that idea. So that's
Good.
all I have. Thanks for the time, Larry.
Yep. It's funny you mentioned about the traffic going across the bridge. Yeah, I have the same feelings as you, actually. I would like to see the pedestrians on one side of the roadway and bicyclists on the other side of the roadway, because it's going to be, I think, a pretty wide pathway for both bikes or pedestrians. And I agree with you. I don't think it's a good mix. I've walked, what's the name of the park? Not Sertoma Park, Shelley Lake. And sometimes the bikers come speeding around the curve and it's, everybody for themselves. So be nice to separate them where we could. And that was one of the comments I made too. And I'd like to look for that and see if that's there. So I think we're talking about little details. It's the little details, but the bigger detail is just getting the bridge progress, getting it moving, getting it budgeted, moving forward. So yeah, discussions to come. Let's see, anything else? We were going to have a guest today. I don't see anybody here. Linda, Steve, Whitney. No, we were going to have a guest that would speak about the Community Engagement Board. One of the most consistent questions I get, partially because of the Indy article that ran a couple of weeks ago, that said CACs are back. Well, CACs are not back. What we have gotten is permission to use the community centers as we have done before, except in a more restrictive manner. In other words, it was one community center per district, and we lucked out in that Eastgate was selected for our district, which happens to be our former home. So we jumped all over that. I reserved April, May, and June. Don't expect to use them all because I want to try to get it as a hybrid meeting. It's not my expertise, but we'll get it done so that we can have both the virtual format and the in-person format. So that's my target. We may struggle a little bit in the beginning with it, but if we can get it done effectively, that's a good way for us for the future. Because I know there are many people that do not attend virtual, and there are many people that attend virtually that don't want to do the in-person. So try to find that happy compromise between the two. I'm myself a little spoiled with virtual. That enables me to be in Florida and sit in on the meeting. So has advantages. And if you notice, the police department had that same luxury tonight. So, but I wanted to make everybody aware that come April, we will hold a physical meeting in Eastgate Park. And I'm going to try to work out the details that everybody know in advance about the virtual versus the in-person. So fortunately, the weather's been good. Nights are a little longer, days a little longer. So we'll sort that out. Let's see. Oh, getting back to the Community Engagement Board. I'm not sure how that's going to fit in to the overall organization. They are doing some good things. They take their lead from, I guess, the Department of Community Engagement. And yet, then they get to run with it. For some of the things they've gotten accomplished so far, the 3-minute speaking time at council, that came from the Community Engagement Board. Trying to think of some of the other things. There is a move to allow more time for public comment, public hearing in some format, probably another meeting on the council's part. But anything along those lines would be beneficial. In terms of where we're going, my attitude is we are independent. And until somebody comes and says, you know, maybe you shouldn't be, or this is where they want to change things, we'll address that in the future. But for right now, we're still operating the same way we've always operated. And we're going to use a community center since that's an opportunity we were given back. And I expect to jump all over that and not let that diminish. So anybody have any comments about that? Do you favor in-person versus virtual? Or both?
A hybrid seems to be the best. Particularly when, like you pointed out, the police officers, we don't need to have them come. They can sit in their cars or in their office. Much
Right.
better.
Yeah, I think we'll get more city involvement too, because the idea is to go back to where we used to do things with more reporting by parks and reporting from some of the different departments within the city. And if they can do that virtually, I think that's a real benefit, even though I think seeing them firsthand in person also has a lot of pluses. So we'll see how it works out. Looking forward
So
to
let me
April.
ask a question. When you say hybrid, are you talking about having a hybrid meeting?
Yep,
Meaning you're going to do both virtual and in person?
gonna try to.
Well,
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I've seen a lot of people try it, especially with Facebook, trying to broadcast on Facebook. At the same time, they have an in-person meeting, and I don't think that's working out very well. So I could use all the assistance in this area that I could get because I want to make sure it works. We tried it right before the CACs got defunded. It never really worked out. So we're experimenting.
Well, I would try it. I will tell you this, I've had a lot of experience in, business networking with this stuff through COVID. And it's funny, online meetings worked real great. And then, of course, before online meetings, in-person meetings worked great. And then some of the groups, and this is in BNI, it's a business networking group thing where you meet once a week. When some of the groups, and there's a bunch of these groups, and I sort of studied this, when they went to a hybrid meeting, what generally I saw happen was that the people in the meeting were engaged who were there in person. And for whatever reason, the engagement, which was pretty good in the virtual meeting with the hybrid people who were coming in virtually, that the attention just totally dropped off with those people. It was like a really sort of strange thing. Now, I'm not saying that's the case with this because this is a different animal, but it's just something I would try it and see what happens. And you might expend your, participation membership wise by doing this, but I just sort of what I saw happen when we were dealing with a business networking group where everyone went in order and gave their 1 minute pitch, and sort of people gave their pitch and then they went off and did something else or didn't pay attention.
Yeah, that's why I say I reserved the community center for the 3 months, but I don't think we'll be doing in person for 3 months.
Yeah.
It's just a guess. Steve?
But you're talking about doing a mixed meeting, right?
Yes.
Where
Mhm.
people still, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Steve?
Larry, one of the things that, I've worked on some of these, and the big catch is the presenters. Because if you have people in the room making presentations, so if it's you and you have the meeting, right, you're hosting it, that's easy. But the thing where you really lose it on the hybrid is if the presenter isn't also in front of a PC or whatever, because then, you got issues with, first of all, hearing, and second of all, with just the visibility and things like that for the people in the online session. And then the only other way, the other area where you could really run into a problem is discussion. because it's sort of like it's like doing a presser when somebody in the back asks a question, and the speaker is the only one that seems to hear it. So you sort of have to play a different moderator role when you're doing those kinds of meetings, and that can be a little challenging. But one thing you can do is just have a second laptop there that your speakers are using.
Yeah, I've thought about that, and which raises my biggest concern is I'm not sure how much bandwidth the community center has, because for every phone that's open, every computer that's open, I can see the signal just kind of filtering down.
It'll pixel out.
Yeah, that's the concern. We'll have to run a couple of trials in there and see just what we can and can't do.
Might be DSL in there.
What's that?
Might be DSL.
I don't know. I hope they're better than that. They did improve something, so we'll see. Okay, if I overlook anybody, Ted, people are now coming in. Well, how about that? Is there anything that I've overlooked, something that you'd like to talk about that I have not talked about? Those of you coming in late, we had a meeting in rapid succession tonight since we didn't have many viewers. So, but there will be a video. So anything that we've discussed, the video will become available. And that's working out, from my standpoint, that's working out really well. It's not hard to do. And the video has 1,000 followers. Now, maybe we're shooting ourselves in the foot that way too. I don't know. Maybe that's why attendance is dropping off, because people just watch the video. So that's something to be interesting to watch. Any comments, suggestions, inputs?
I've got something to mention, just throw out there a little self-promotion. On my election site, which is still up, there's a YouTube channel where I'm just talking about Raleigh issues and giving my views on it and stuff. So I'm trying to get people to subscribe to that, whitneyforraleigh.org, the YouTube channel off of there.
Okay. I'll put that in the minutes, get that out there. Anything else? Ted, for your benefit, I don't know if you caught the tail end of the in-person meeting versus the virtual meeting, but for April, we're going to try to do some hybrid version of that. No guarantees, but we are going to meet in person in April at Eastgate Community Center.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Anybody else? Gonna set a record tonight. Okay, well, thanks everybody. Thanks for joining in. As Lubin had said, national meeting. No, not really, just me. And I'll see you all in April. Anything occurs, just let me know. Anything of interest, just let me know. My door is always open. Take care and have a great evening.
Stop signs, Larry.
What's that?
Watch out for the stop signs.
It's dangerous down here, believe me.
Have a good night.
Good night.